thanks a lot, everybody, for coming out. I know it's really chilly, but I know that you guys are super excited to hear about insects, and I figured with being so close to Halloween, we've got to talk about insect horrors. And as I did this presentation, I found like the coolest examples of insects that I could find that would fit this title. And when I was done though, I was like, you know what? I think horrors is really like not the right, like, because it's really judgmental, isn't it? It is. So I thought I would come up with a new title for this. I thought we should instead call this, How Are We Not This Cool? So that's hopefully what I really want you to get out of this, is that the examples I'm going to give you tonight they might seem like really crazy and disgusting. They're awesome. They're really, really cool examples. So I've got some examples here that I think you guys have maybe heard of and maybe have not. I hear groans already. Okay, all right. So I started with one that is a little bit near and dear to my heart because I do a lot of outreach, educating the public about bed bugs. And I'm not here to talk about like, you know, all of the things that go along with bed bugs. You know, there's a lot of really negative things that go along with bed bugs, and there's a lot of social aspects that people are really worried about, and there's some stigmas that people have that, you know, again, I'm really trying to break that cycle for people, but that wasn't the horror part, okay? So the horror part is actually, we're gonna talk about the mating behaviors of bed bugs. Figured we start off right, okay? All right, so on the side here, we have bed bugs crossing the screen, and I've got these examples of these bed bug in the different life stages. They're really, you know, they're really prolific. They do a lot of mating, but the mating behavior is weird. So female bed bugs actually have the normal reproductive anatomy that an insect would have. But the male doesn't use the normal anatomy. You see this like really sharp looking thing? This is basically the male genitalia. It's like a syringe. And what will happen is the male doesn't use the female anatomy. He actually jams his penis through her body. Right here in this spot. So I figured let's oops, let me go back, let me get this, see if we can, maybe Sarah, let me just press back, so we can get this, there we go. All right, maybe go forward now. Let's see. All right, so go ahead and start this video. I have a video here. We have a male, well, I guess we're gonna run across the screen here too. We have a male that's wrapped around the female, and this poor female is having to endure this male poking through its body. All right, so I know, like I said, horrors was, you know, but this is kind of cool. This is kind of a cool adaptation. You see, that male is a lot more successful with his mating, leads to lots and lots of bed bugs. And again, I'm happy to talk about bed bugs with anybody at any time, but I thought we'd start off with something a little near and dear to my heart. The next one, oh, you guys are gonna love this one. A human botfly. This is a fly that the larva, the immature flies, they develop underneath the skin of a human. You can see their range here, South America, Central America, and what I think is so cool about this is that this fly is a little bit bigger than like a housefly. And if you've ever had a housefly land on you, it's like, you know it's there. Well, this big fly doesn't want to go visit a host. So what it does is it makes mosquitoes do the work for them. So this fly will grab a mosquito out of the air. It will glue eggs on that mosquito and then let the mosquito go. Mosquito's like, okay, whatever, I'm still gonna go feed. It goes to a human, and when that mosquito is feeding, those eggs will drop off. And that little larva will crawl in through the hole that the mosquito just made with its mouth parts and just start eating underneath the skin of that human host. They get to be pretty big. It takes a little while for them to fully mature as larvae. And there's some really neat things. I mean, okay, so I keep saying neat, like I'm fascinated. You guys might not think it's neat, but they've got these like really sharp backward pointing spines. So it's really hard to get them out. They get to be pretty big, they develop, and then they come out of the person underneath their skin. They come out, they fall to the ground, they pupate, and then you've got an adult that emerges that goes through this cycle again. Really, really cool. So I figured let's keep it going with all of my gross videos. We've got it. Oh, I know, right? Okay. So you got to read the bottom here. This emerged from this. This is an entomologist. So if I'm not showing you that we're weird, this guy certainly will. And look what he says about it. He had a father-child relationship with this botfly emerging. So I know a lot of people are like really into watching like the pimple popping videos and stuff. So if you're like bored with pimple popping, go to botfly videos, okay? So this is the next crazy insect that I wanted to show you guys. All right, moving on to the bombardier beetles. Bombardier beetles, really, really diverse group. We've got a lot of them here in the US. There's like 500 or so different species of bombardier beetles around the world. And what you're seeing here is this beetle that is spraying out a liquid. Okay, so you can see from these pictures, it's going in a lot of different directions. And this is a defense mechanism. So this beetle has a couple of spots inside of its abdomen, one of them that has some chemicals, like precursors to a chemical. The other spot has these enzymes that when they are mixed up, this liquid that it's spraying is coming out at 100 degrees Celsius. That's boiling. And it's a really caustic chemical that will scare away predators. And a funny story is Charles Darwin started off his love for all things of the natural world as a kid growing up collecting beetles. And there was a time where he stumbled upon these beetles that he was like, I've never seen these beetles, they're awesome. And he grabbed one with his hand and he saw another one, he grabbed it with his other hand. And there was a third. He's like, well, I got to have all three. So he takes one and he puts it in his mouth. Well, unfortunately, it was a bombardier beetle. And it burned his tongue. So he only went home that night with 2 bombardier beetles in his hands and not the one in his mouth. So here we have another awesome video. You can go ahead, Sarah, thank you. So we have a bombardier beetle. Everybody loves like fights. Bombardier beetle here. And we're going to see what this bombardier beetle can do. So by grabbing the leg of the bombardier beetle, you can see it quickly spray out. I mean, this is really fast. It could do this like 20 times before it exhausts all of these really caustic liquids. This is slow motion. I mean, it's really fast, really hot, really caustic. So we've got this toad. This toad sees this beetle and thinks, awesome, lunch. If you could hear this, you can actually hear a popping sound. They watch it for 88 minutes, and this poor beetle comes out. Now, I like their comment on it. They parted ways unharmed. I don't know about this beetle. Looks like it's seen some things inside of the stomach of that toad. But that is a really cool defense mechanism to spray out boiling caustic liquids. Okay? So that is a bombardier beetle. I like making analogies, and honestly, what I think of as a bombardier beetle is Britney in her toxic days with a little bit of Macarena. So they can go 270 degrees with that spray. So if you get anything out of this, Britney Spears and the Macarena is the bombardier beetle. All right, no, I lied to you. It wasn't all insects. We've got an insect relative. I got to talk about spiders tonight. So the brown recluse spider is a poor spider that gets a bad rap. It is a pretty normal looking brown spider. They get called the fiddleback spider because they have kind of a violin shape on their cephalothorax, which is their head and their thorax together. Right here, it's like a little violin. The unfortunate thing is that there's a lot of brown spiders that have like a little violin on them. So what you really need to do is actually get close. And if you find a brown spider with a violin and you look and they only have 6 eyes, okay, now you might have a brown recluse. Many people think that they see brown recluse spiders. This is a funny story by this researcher, Rick Vetter, really took this, a lot of the people saying that they have a brown recluse or they were bit by a spider when they were sleeping. He took it to heart. And he was in California and he had all these people saying they had brown recluse spiders. He said, fine, I'm going to start this nationwide program. You find a brown recluse, you send it to me. And this is years and years of gathering up these examples to say, okay, do we have a brown recluse or not? This is the range. You can see where we are in Ohio. It kind of gets to the corner, the southwest corner of Ohio. That's about it. Now, if you are bit by a brown recluse, they have some really potent venom that is cytotoxic, so it kills cells and it turns necrotic. But not everything that turns necrotic is from a brown recluse spider. So what I have here, and I certainly don't expect everybody to read all this. I just want to point this out. This is a table from a paper that shows a whole bunch of different spiders that were sent in that people said, oh, this is definitely a brown recluse spider. None of them were brown recluse, not none of them. Most of them were not brown recluse spiders. But if you notice on this comments, look who did the diagnosing that it was a brown recluse. 3 physicians. Physician. Look at this one. Used in a medical school to train physicians. Like so many people misidentify these brown recluse spiders. And these are all conditions that have been diagnosed as brown recluse bites that were something totally different. Most of them are just like bacterial infections, fungal infections. We've got vascular disorders. Look at, diabetic ulcers, poison ivy. So, if you guys knew Rick Vetter, like this would be a true Rick Vetter form here. This is really cool of him. He came up with this mnemonic, not recluse, that a doctor can go through for each letter. And if somebody has all of these things, like, is it necrotic? Where's the occasion? Where was? But I thought that was a little tongue-in-cheek way of having people to realize if you get bit by something or you have some sort of ulcer, it's probably not a recluse. All right, moving on to probably an insect that had more impact on human history than any other insect ever is the oriental rat flea. This flea here was the cause of the transmission of the bubonic plague. So now, we are learning a lot about pandemics and in the bubonic plague. We have had a lot of different plagues in history, but the bubonic plague, the Black Death took, some estimates are 1/3 to 1/2 of all of the humans living in Europe. It killed them. Okay, so this is a pretty big deal. And the way this works is that this flea feeds on rats. Well, if these rats are carrying this bacteria, so maybe if you would play this here for me, Sarah. If they are carrying this plague bacteria, Yersinia pestis, the flea will feed on a rat that's carrying that. Now, this flea, when it consumes blood that has that bacteria will actually replicate inside of its digestive tract, and it will block the rat's digestive tract, the flea's digestive tract. So that flea gets hungrier and hungrier, so it goes to feed. And it can't go anywhere because it's blocked up, so it vomits up all of this bacteria on the next host. And the flea will just go and feed and feed and feed until it dies, spreading this bacteria. And as you can see from a lot of the art of the time, this was clearly a huge deal. A lot of people died just because that bacteria blocked the digestive tract, and these fleas were able to transmit it. And this is something that never really completely disappeared. This is from the CDC, and it's to show you guys out west in the US, there's transmission of plague among a lot of rodents. And sometimes these fleas are picked up by humans via their dogs. Their dogs are out playing, and this person is unsuspectingly cuddling with a flea-covered dog, and that person might, in fact, be exposed to that bacteria. Luckily, now we have antibiotics, we have treatments, we have a lot more knowledge than we did back in the Middle Ages, but still something to think about nonetheless. All right, hope I'm not boring you guys with insects here, because I got a couple more that I wanted to show you about. Burying beetles. Give you more, all right, got exactly that for you. Burying beetles this is another group of beetles that, you know, biologists, we're not always the most creative with our names. We're like, oh, here's a beetle that like buries things. Let's call him a burying beetle. And that's what they do. And even more creative, we have one here that in America, and we call it the American burying beetle. It's actually an endangered species. So this beetle, this is its native range, and we only have small pockets. There are actually some efforts to reintroduce this beetle, but this larger group, the burying beetles, are really interesting because what they will do. Got a little video here. It's perfect timing, so we can watch this little video. Here's our dead shrew, soon to be dead shrew. When this shrew dies, if a burying beetle gets there, it's laying on its back, moving this giant shrew. Look at it. That's pretty Halloween-esque right there. Over a gate. Yep. So we're going to this underground lair that we are about to close this dead shrew in. So here we are, just blocking off the entrance. And now we have this burying beetle embalming this shrew. And Mom is gonna start chewing up and feeding her little larva. Isn't that a cute little larva? It's a really, really cool system because you have this beetle that's actually providing parental care. It's really uncommon among insects that aren't social insects like honeybees that actually take care of their young. And they do a great job. They have to get there pretty quickly, but when they do, they're able to bury that dead animal and feed their young. Burying beetles, really, really cool. All right. Tarantula hawk wasps. I used to do a lot of work with tarantulas, and now I work a lot with insects, and so I don't really know who I prefer in this fight, but it's just a really cool fight. So we have these really large wasps, and they get their name from what they do. They will fight a giant tarantula. So here we have, locked in a death match. Once it flips over that tarantula, watch the tarantula just immediately stop moving. It's paralyzed. So the tarantula hawk wasp won that fight. And now look, this tarantula is getting dragged to another burrow Except unlike the shrew in the last one, it's alive. It's just completely paralyzed. The tarantula hawk wasp does that so that she can lay an egg on that live tarantula. So that tarantula is just completely paralyzed. That egg hatches from that wasp and starts to eat the tarantula alive. But it doesn't do it indiscriminately. It avoids all the major organs so that that tarantula stays alive long enough for that wasp larva to get bigger and bigger. And then it eats those vital organs. So those were the cool insects that I wanted to talk about, and I really hope that I was right in changing the name of this from horrors to things that we can think of that are we're just not that cool. These are really cool examples from the natural world. I love that you guys are all here listening to us talk about science. We love science. This is why we do what we do. I'm happy to take questions, and I appreciate you guys coming out tonight. Thank you.